So hello everyone, welcome to the webinar. What I want to do as part of today's agenda is to provide some background on Virtalis as an organisation, because I think it's important to understand where we've come from and how that's ultimately shaped the design of Virtalis Reach, the software platform I want to talk about today. I'll then go on to talk a bit about the architecture of Virtalis Reach at a high level, but enough to give you a flavour of how it hangs together, what the significance of it is, before giving a demonstration of the product itself. So, Virtalis was founded as a spin-off of a university research program, and from the very beginning, we've been about developing and advancing solutions for real industrial applications. So, for example, BAE Systems were using RVR headsets and systems to reduce the development costs of the design and build of their surface ships and submarines from very early days. We're talking about the early 90s here. So we were pioneering the very foundation of our visualization industry today. And BAE Systems are still a customer of ours today across a number of their divisions and across a number of territories. So realizing the need organizations have, which is to easily create visualizations based on existing assets, Virtalis develops software products used by industry leaders to solve real problems. And so our mission is to bring effortless visualizations into any conversation and do that at everything up to enterprise scale. We know that the use of virtual, augmented, and more generally extended reality helps organizations create competitive advantage. And we also know that there is no more effective way to get people from different disciplines to achieve a common understanding than to use visualization. So we believe that this is a way of working that should be available to all in order to create a safer and more efficient workplace. And to do this at scale, which means being able to handle the size and complexity of global organizations and their networks. And over the years, we've been proud to work with and are proud to work with industry leaders from a range of sectors, each of whom bring their own challenges and requirements to us. And just as one example, here's a video from Subsea 7, a large engineering, construction and services company serving the offshore energy industry. And they use visualization across the entire project lifecycle, from initial tender to final delivery. Now, this particular video shows the project planning and familiarization stages for the replacement of a clamp that had failed on a North Sea installation. Now, Visionary Render, which is our flagship software product, was used to import the CAD and 3D model files that you see being used here to create an interactive, immersive experience for the dive teams so they fully understood the operation and planning upfront and onshore. The replacement of a clamp, like the one under consideration here, is particularly hazardous as the dive teams are having to work inside the subsurface structure with no underwater vehicle support. Using the visualization capabilities provided by Visionary Render, the team were able to walk through and assess the operational procedures in a safe and dry manner. The virtual model itself was created as part of the design and engineering process, and reusing that data, those assets, meant not only time and cost savings, but also gave the dive team confidence that the virtual environment was highly accurate. In addition to becoming familiar with the tasks and work order, the job could be fully risk assessed and additional safety steps could be planned where necessary. Once the offshore work began, there was no reported problems or change requests for this phase of the project. And to put that in some kind of context, normally the project team said they would expect somewhere in the region of 3 to 4 changes based on experience on similar projects. A little more anecdotal, but still telling, is that the onshore engineers were telling us things like, we knew it would work before the vessel left the dock, and they could sleep easily at night knowing that this had been well thought through. And as for the dive team themselves, I mean, they were initially quite reserved about the use of technology like this, but soon saw its benefits and how it could enhance their safety and efficiency. And this is now a way of working that's a recommended operational practice for similarly complex offshore evolutions. So in the last years, we've seen that the use of immersive and connected visualization really has become a critical tool for industry. But the ambition organizations have for it is bigger again. And it's an ambition that brings with it a growing need for easy access to up-to-date, relevant, and context-specific visualizations right across the organization. And this is a demand that's becoming more pressing due to three main drivers. Firstly, working with distributed teams has real implications. Supporting the types of ad hoc and real-time collaboration with colleagues which you might encounter in a normal office situation is extremely important. But working in a distributed fashion also requires an asynchronous paradigm to be supported. How else will you ensure that you don't miss out on the input of a particular team simply because the calendars are blocked for the next week or two, or because they're on the other side of the world in a very different time zone? Organizations need processes and tools to ensure that all their people are included. Secondly, the advantages of virtual reality for training and design review are well established. These are the groups that have traditionally had access to the technology capable of supporting such a way of working, so the hardware, the visualization infrastructure. But now people from outside that small group want to take those same advantages on board too. And finally, more and more companies are working together in risk-sharing consortia rather than the more basic supplier and OEM relationships of the past. In this more tightly coupled relationship, it's critical that information can flow securely between partners in order to make the right decisions first time and in time. Thus, the need for effortless visualizations. Organizations need to adopt to a new way to distribute and engage with mission-critical information. This is an evolution that needs to occur right across the project lifecycle. Each domain, speciality, or task presents its own unique context. From a salesperson who needs to show their products to a group of customers in an engaging experience, an assembly floor manager who wants to have clear insights on the production status via real-time and predictive data, to the engineering teams who want to do a design review based on the latest changes right down to nut and bolt level. No matter what the context, the intended audience needs to be presented with the correct, most up-to-date and relevant information to serve their needs. Accomplishing this for evolving, changing projects is no trivial task, however. But Virtalis is about accommodating exactly that. We make sure that you can create effortless visualizations for any conversation at enterprise scale. Our solutions can connect to almost any data sources out there, so you can easily bring in your key data, be that PLM, so product lifecycle management, or manufacturing execution system, CAD data, connect to web services or production simulation engines. With our software, you can bring the whole project together. Your digital assets can be optimized, extended, and reused, so you can easily, even automatically, create visualizations for different use cases. Your people can collaborate in these visualizations on their desktops, immersively in a cave or head-mounted display, or simply through a web browser via the sharing of a web link. Our software products and immersive systems are designed to place visualizations at the heart of your operations. So on the screen, I'm showing you our software products down the left. I've already touched on Visionary Render. Virtalis Reach is what we're going to cover in more detail now. We also have GeoVisionary, a tool more designed for geoscientists and earth science. But over on the right, we also have our systems from moves through to walls and cubes. What I would encourage you to do if you want to learn more about any of these is to head over to virtalis.com, where you'll be able to find much more information about each of these. But for now, we're going to take a bit more of a deep dive into Virtalis Reach, because that's the product we've been developing over the last year or so. We'll talk about it in terms of 3 layers: integrate, orchestrate, and engage, which come together to deliver a complete pipeline for information from source to end user. We'll step through each item in turn and look at the unique features that are designed to realize that goal of effortless visualizations. But this admittedly very simplistic overview gives an idea of the overall architecture. Keeping it at a high level, the first thing to say is that the entire platform is built to be cloud compatible. You can install Virtalis Reach on the cloud platform or infrastructure of your choice. So that means your own instances of AWS, Azure, Google, etc. Or if you've got your own server hardware in your organization, install it on that. And pretty modest hardware at that. One thing we haven't done with this product is to, on the one hand, say that users can access these visualizations on any device they have to hand. We haven't done that by moving that problem upstream or to the server. I mean, as we'll see when we talk about the Orchestrate layer, what we've done is build in some very clever processes and features to make sure that Virtalis Reach lives up to that principle of being hardware agnostic. But to give you some numbers to back that statement up, to run an instance of Virtalis Reach, the recommended minimum is 8 cores accessible to Kubernetes, 32 gigabytes of RAM, 75 gigabytes of local storage, and no GPU, no graphics processing unit is required in the server itself. So let's have a look at the first element in the flow, the integrate layer, where we built a number of tools which enables Virtalis Reach to connect with and sync to a range of external data sources. It's worth emphasizing that when we were designing Virtalis Reach, we designed it to work with and build upon some of the key features of Visionary Render. So if you're not familiar with Visionary Render, it's built up quite a formidable reputation for dealing with different data sources, complex data sources, and creating vast and complex scenes from them. So first and foremost, Visionary Render will be a route into Virtalis Reach. Now, what that means in practice is that you can create your files, the VR native files from Visionary Render, and push them into the platform to be shared to registered users. And about that, I'll talk more later. But Reach goes further. Pipelines to relevant data sources can be set up and schedules for updating them defined such that end users are served with the most relevant, up-to-date information as a matter of course. As to what those data sources might be, in some sense, it's whatever is required for your organization. Most obviously, that might be the CAD files, which can be brought into the integrate layer directly. Similarly, it'll be possible to use our API to connect to other data sources for which we don't have direct connectors, but which contain data to which you might wish to apply to your visualizations. And finally, we will have direct integrations with the major PLM systems. Now, at the first release of Virtalis Reach, that means the ability to tie in directly with PTC's Windchill PLM system. But we are also members of the Siemens Technical Partnership Program, and we expect to be adding support for their Teamcenter PLM as part of a future upgrade. So as I hope I've been able to indicate, it's possible to use this integrate layer to plumb Virtalis Reach into a vast range of organizational assets in order to bring together a rich array of information with which you can create your visualizations. And so on to the Orchestrate layer. This is the heart of Virtalis Reach, really. And at the heart of that is the hub, Virtalis Hub, where the information you've ingested is stored, ready for use in visualizations. However, this Orchestrate stage is also the place where we begin to process and prepare the information for visualization. And this is one of the reasons we've been able to lower the barrier to entry in terms of hardware for end users across the board. So let's look at that in more detail. I've referenced the fact that we've designed the Virtalis Reach platform to not depend on raw computational horsepower to manage the visualization pipeline. I'll be coming back to that point again. But it's worth noting that Virtalis Reach also doesn't require users to constrain, simplify, or reduce the scope of their data before it's brought into the platform. A key working principle is that data should be reused for different contexts and tasks, and the notion of asking users to work on their information beforehand before it enters the platform is at odds with that. Thus, the approach we've taken in Virtalis Reach is to begin to process and optimize the input information as soon as it enters the pipeline. This process achieves three main goals. It means we're not relying on a graphics card to carry all the load when it comes to the final visualization piece at the engage layer. This approach that we've designed uses the server CPUs to begin to create the different levels of detail needed by the client device up front, hence no GPU requirement in the host machine. It lowers the overhead for when we come to generating a visualization, and we'll talk more about that when we look at the engage layer. And deconstructing the inputs while maintaining the relationships between those different elements helps us reuse that data and is a key part of why our rules and templates engine works so well. And it's this templates engine in Virtalis Reach that plays such an important role when it comes to the automation of processing and the reuse of data. Templates allow users to define what work should be done to a particular combination of data sets in order to make it suitable for a particular use case. So for example, an engineering team may wish to see an assembly direct from the PLM without much, if any, further processing. Conversely, the marketing group may wish to see different materials and textures applied, and might regard some of the different components and assemblies as clutter that they have no interest in sharing with their audience. Templates allow you to apply such decoration as is required and remove those different elements if necessary. But however you process your visualization, and whatever the schedule, the output must ultimately be distributed to end users across and perhaps even beyond the organization. Virtalis Reach allows you to create user groups and federate groups from other tools such as Active Directory, such that you can distribute the appropriate end product to the right group. This Orchestrate component is the real workhorse of the entire platform. It processes, manages, optimizes, and distributes your information in a scalable manner without introducing a big overhead, either in terms of manual effort or hardware infrastructure. But of course, the business end of a visualization platform is the point at which we deliver those visualizations to your target audience, and that takes us to the engage layer. To get to the point where we can do that, we've discussed how Virtalis Reach can connect to different data sources, allow you to set up a schedule for publication, and reconfigure the output automatically for different user groups. We've discussed how, in order to ensure the greatest potential for reuse without making heavyweight computing a prerequisite, Virtalis Reach has had to adapt some innovative approaches to optimization and rendering. But it's really at the edge where this entire process comes alive from the perspective of the end user. Your intended audience will engage with the visualizations through a shared web link, and I'll show you this interface in a second. At this stage, we want to ensure we tick two key boxes, security and performance, and both are achieved by essentially the same mechanism. And it's all to do with the optimization and processing engine that was kicked off back at the Orchestrate level. When a user clicks on a link to start a visualization or join a collaborative session, the Virtalis Reach platform starts up a series of processes at the edge that are designed to serve no other purpose than to deliver the visualization to the end user. To do this, the final level of context is taken into account, the connection between the client and the edge instance, and what is within the view of the user at that point. The edge instance only sends down the bare minimum of triangles to the client that are required to render the on-screen view. The edge instance itself is drawing upon the information available to it from the pre-processing that was done at the Orchestrate layer, and is doing that on the fly to minimize the work that needs to be done live. As a consequence, nothing needs to be stored on the client side, and the performance of the system isn't compromised by the need to do a lot of last-minute processing. Similarly, where a collaborative session has been established, that too is processed at the edge level with the same benefits. The bare minimum of information is temporarily passed outside the system, and such computational work as is required happens within the platform, where the available resources are more guaranteed. And at the most basic level, that's how the Virtalis Reach platform fits together. It comprises a complete end-to-end platform to go from data source to consumer. And in order to round this overview off, what I'll do is I'll skip to a quick demo of what you'll see at the edge level. So when you're sharing visualizations, to show off some of the features that are within it. So if I skip over to this scene here. So here we are within the Virtalis Reach web browser interface. You can see that I've accessed this via a URL link. We're looking at a fairly basic scene of a gas turbine engine sitting on a plinth. But what you can see is that we're already able to bring in some features which you may recognize from using our other software, Visionary Render. We can work with animations to explode parts and see some detail that's going on within the scene. We also have the ability to add more realistic colors. So this is something that can be done via the GUI that we have here at the bottom, or as I will talk about in a subsequent video, we will be able to do this kind of thing through templates, so you can automate the creation of your scenes and essentially make it easy to distribute the same content to a number of different users. What I want to show now is just how easy it is to bring colleagues into visualizations with you to work collaboratively. So I click on the invite link, open the session up so that anyone who's authorized to access this scene can do. And what I'm going to do is just off the screen, I'm going to send my colleague this link. And they will be joining me in this visualization. If I just explode the part for them to look into. Tim is going to join me here. He's going to join in an immersive mode. So we've built Virtalis Reach using the WebXR interface. And so he will join in the headset, and we'll see him in a second. While we're waiting for him to join, just to highlight some other features, we have the ability to, of course, navigate using touchscreen controls. This is an interface that's designed to work with tablets, mobile devices, as well as laptops. Here's Tim now, and if I just move around, he's in the middle of the visualization. There he is, popping up there. So you can see Tim. You can see his controllers with his HMD. He's now starting to look around. He can move independently and freely. He can start to examine the visualization in the manner he needs to. If he wishes to point anything out, he can get right in there and start to really indicate what it is that's of interest, what he wants to bring out. So if we're talking about a particular aspect of a visualization, it's a very convenient thing to do within Virtalis Reach. So that's how easy it is to set up visualizations and work collaboratively with colleagues. I'm just going to thank Tim for joining. So thanks to Tim for joining me there. So that's how easy it is to join sessions. Incidentally, when I close that scene down, it's removed from for me. So I've stopped the connection to the server that's showing that scene for my benefit. Tim is left in there, but no one else can join it. So Tim can stay and look around in there as long as he likes. But what won't be possible is for anyone else to join that session. So if that link I shared has got out to anyone else, it's now of no use to them at all. Before we get into the details of this scene, just a little more detail on what's happening when I access a visualization in Virtalis Reach. What's happening is that I establish a connection with the back end of the Virtalis Reach platform, the Virtalis Edge instance. Once that authorizes and authenticates me, it sends down just the triangles that are necessary in order to render the image that's in front of me right now. So as I move around, as I pan and zoom and move around this visualization, what's being sent down from the server is updating constantly in order just to deliver what's on screen at that moment. And that's precisely why we're able to manage visualizations on any device really. It removes a lot of the legwork, most of the hard work actually, from the client devices. And even that collaborative session we had a second ago, that was all being administered in the back end of the platform. So neither my device nor the device Tim was using to connect are being asked to do any of that workload. If you wish to know more about how this works in more detail, then I would refer you to some of the If you wish to know more about how this hangs together in practice, I would point you towards our website, virtalis.com, or developers.virtalis.com, where you can find more detail about how the Virtalis Reach platform hangs together. So here we are in a new scene. It's the same gas turbine, but now you can see it's installed within a vessel in this case. And one thing you can use this type of interface for is to start to instruct people in how to perform procedures. So in this case, we're going to look at replacing a part on this combustor can here. And this is telling me that I need to first of all go and inspect the part. So if I come over to the item of interest, I can begin to inspect. Oops, beg your pardon. I can inspect the part. And now what it's doing is it's walking me through the different aspects, removing the pipework, removing the nuts, removing this flange plate itself. Now this is a fairly basic sequence, but obviously you can add in the level of detail you require. And you can also then refer back to checklists to make sure that your intended audience are working through this in the correct manner. This can be, of course, connected to any learning management systems you have. And it's a convenient way of distributing content to end users such that they can take advantage of visualizations without necessarily having to install any software. So I've not got anything installed on my client device. It's a laptop I'm using here, which is necessary to run this. It's just a web browser. And they don't need to be familiar with virtual reality technology more generally, or have access to a head-mounted display, for example, in order to take advantage of the type of material we're looking at here. So in this case, we've installed our gas turbine within a ship, which is itself within a bigger dock hall environment. So your training can be well structured, it can be context sensitive, so making sure that it's delivered in a manner that's relevant to your intended audience, and it can be reused in different ways. So if you wanted to replay that gas turbine maintenance scenario, but this time it's not within the bowels of a ship, but it's within a power station or an offshore installation, that's entirely possible. And the beauty of the way Virtalis Reach works is that when I close down these scenes, nothing is left on the client device. So should this scene update, I will always get access to the latest and greatest. Nothing is kept on my local device. So that's a quick snapshot view of the Virtalis Reach platform from the perspective of the end user. I hope it's been useful. What I'll do in following videos is share a little more about how projects are created, how we can connect into PLM systems, for example, and how you can make Virtalis Reach part of your organization's daily workflow. Thank you very much.